Hello and welcome to Panoramic Edition, where we discuss national, regional and international developments in depth. Established in 2001 by the Islamic Development Bank, along with several prominent Islamic financial institutions, the General Council for Islamic Banks and Financial Institutions, CIBAFI, has emerged as a key international non-profit institution within the global Islamic finance landscape. Representing over 130 members across more than 34 jurisdictions worldwide, the CIBAFI is dedicated to advancing the objectives of Shariah in financial practices and promoting collaboration among its members and other institutions with shared interest. To talk more about that, we are pleased to be joined here at the studio by the CIBAFI's Secretary General, Dr. Abdelilah Belatik, right after this. Welcome back. We are pleased to be joined here in the studio by CIBAFI Secretary General, Dr. Abdelilah Belatik. Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you, Doctor, for being with us today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Yes, Doctor, being here again is the concept. It's been 3 years and so many things have happened. We've talked about this a little bit. But CIBAFI, as it is called, or the General Council for Islamic Banks and Financial Institutions, was established in 2001. And its role has evolved not over the last few years, but over many, many years in the global Islamic finance landscape. Tell us a little bit about that. How did it develop since then?
Well, I think, as you said, it has been established in 2001 with the aim and objective of supporting the Islamic finance industry globally, with various objectives and outputs. For the last 10 years, we have actually worked on 3 strategic plans. So we are completing now, this year, 2025, our third one, where the first one was a little bit like setting the foundations of some of the work stream that we are having in terms of policy and regulatory advocacy on the research and reinforcing all the professional development initiatives that we have. It continued later on in the second strategic plan with a little bit more on looking at sustainability and how that's, raising awareness on sustainability and early on the innovations and the new culture of money, the new money that we will be having, and that was already like back 6-7 years ago. When we came to the pandemic, we were at the mid of our second strategic plan, and then we thought things are changing very fast. So we have to adapt our strategic plan to it. So that's why we started the third strategic plan, 2022-2025, focusing more on sustainability and innovation and digital transformation integration. Because of the changes that happened globally at the time, we thought it is necessary to support the Islamic finance globally on looking not at sustainability and innovation in silos, but in integration and seeing how one can support the other. And now, of course, we are again at this stage. For the last few months, we have been consulting our stakeholders, board of directors, our members, and so on what we should be doing for the next step, the next couple of years. And as you said, the world is changing. Of course, it's tremendous now, the pace of change and things really, it's like what we call like the TikTok era. Things are very fast. You don't have time to adapt to it. It's already changing. So this requires really a new paradigm of thinking and of agile practice and agile thinking. And Islamic banks, Islamic finance, and local markets here are very well prepared for this. This brings at the same time, of course, many challenges, but we think also many opportunities that the banks need to take on and be prepared for.
Definitely, definitely. There are actually a lot of concepts that go into creating these policies when it comes to Islamic financing and banking. Policies and rules and regulations that are old, but as you've said, because of the fast pace, not just of the region, but also of the challenges facing them, because of the positive things that are happening, the agility that is required is one of adaptation, and there are tools there. When we talk about AI, when we talk about data analysis, and when we talk about professionals within the banking sector that are within that field itself. Before we go more deep into that, we need to know about the strategies and the policy makers when it comes to Islamic banking and CIBAFI specifically. There are 130 members across more than 30 jurisdictions. What strategies does CIBAFI employ to foster collaboration among these diverse relationships?
I think this is really the word, is diverse membership. And you know, we have members in like very small jurisdictions that are just starting like Islamic finance.
Yeah.
Now recently we just admitted the last few weeks during our annual general meetings, banks from the Maldives and from Morocco. So, I mean, very far one from the other.
Yeah.
So they have very different development stages. So the landscape is very different. So that's why, I mean, talking about the like policies and the regulation, which is, I think, one of the key foundations or key objectives that we have various challenges here. On the one hand, we need to ensure that the regulatory infrastructure is in place in the countries.
Yeah.
Now, this sounds like granted when you are in a country like Bahrain, because Bahrain has been really at the forefront of this and has implemented the necessary regulation, infrastructure, laws, accounting. The Central Bank of Bahrain has been very active for many decades on this.
Yes.
This is not the same for many other countries.
Absolutely.
They are really just struggling. Some, they have almost implemented zero regulation. Yeah. There is zero infrastructure, no capital markets, no takaful industry in those markets. And then Islamic banks, they have to deal with this. So in some markets, we're still struggling with the normal regulatory framework to bring them at par with the conventional banks or the conventional financial sector. So this is one of the challenges. The second one is to keep in pace with the other global changes that are happening and then which affects everybody. So like now, so for example, as we say, issues related to, I mean, AI integration, data analytics. We have issues on climate change and how it is affecting the financial sector and the transition. So all these are very big problems which are impacting already our economies and will be impacting the financial sector more and more for the years to come. So that's why it is very critical for us to support the banks, Islamic banks, wherever they are, in developing markets or in more advanced markets in Islamic finance, to support them in this. So I think the opportunity that we have here for organizations like CIBAFI is that it offers the membership from this diverse pool of development of the industry, the opportunity to be together and to learn from each other. And just at our board meeting, our boards, we have like 15 countries represented, where we meet regularly and we discuss. And those that are less advanced and need support for something, they can reach out to the others and exchange views and ideas and see how they can leverage from the others. Same thing on the regulation. So many times we work even with regulators to bring them to Bahrain, so that they can see from different countries to come to Bahrain to see what is the regulatory framework, how is it, and how they can learn from the practice here, which has been here for 30, 40 years already. So by doing this, I think CIBAFI offers a platform for the members from different regions, different sizes, to leverage and to learn from each other. We even have a program which is like an exchange program.
Yeah.
That even staff from one institution can go to the staff for other institution.
Yeah.
So which shows, I think, in general, Islamic banks, they are very willing to support each other. So they know from one country to the other one, if they need support on something, they are always willing to help. And that's why we need not only to doing what we do it right now, but we will need more and more to do this, because there are many new markets, frontier markets of Islamic finance, which need our support differently from those developed markets.
Yes. It's important also to mention here that not just CIBAFI as an organization, but also when it comes to Islamic banking itself is very adaptable. And as you've said, because you have these different members in these different countries and these different demographics, these different challenges that you face, the adaptability is possible and is tailorable with the experience that CIBAFI brings to the table itself. One of the strengths of Islamic banking in general, and of course CIBAFI in particular, is its collaborations and its cooperations with different entities. Can you tell us a little bit on the significance of CIBAFI's affiliation with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC that you've already mentioned, and how does it support your initiatives?
Yeah, I think, you know, the OIC is 57 countries, so we are affiliated to it, but our membership is not limited to the OIC countries. Our membership goes beyond that. So the idea behind it and why it supports our mission, and we support as well OIC mission, is that because, you know, OIC has a number of organs that work on various areas related to education, related to economic development. They have CESRIC, they have the COMSEC, they have many other organs that are dependent of the OIC. And then as an organization specialized in Islamic financial institutions, so we support each other in terms of the mission of each other. So, for example, when there are like research and some studies are requiring statistics or requiring inputs from CIBAFI related to the field of Islamic finance, then we can intervene and we can go ahead. But broader than this, collaborations of CIBAFI go beyond this. We actually, and one of course, our mission and objectives is to represent the Islamic finance industry globally, which means not only like on a local, on country basis, but also with the international organizations. So that's why we have a number of relationship with and work in relationship with, for example, the United Nations Environment and Protection Finance Initiative. We have, of course, one of our key stakeholders, which is also part of the OIC ecosystem, is the Islamic Development Bank and the Islamic Development Institute, with whom we do a lot of projects and we work together on many initiatives. And we have many others, like the World Bank also, for example, and the International Monetary Fund. And Islamic finance infrastructure institutions, like the IOFI, of course, here in Bahrain, and IFM and IFSB, Islamic Financial Services Board in Malaysia. So with these infrastructure institutions, we aim at supporting and making sure, what I just mentioned before, that the regulatory framework is in place to support the development of the industry. And now, as I am talking, as I said, we are all the infrastructure institutions in Kazan, in Tatarstan, during that summit for almost a week. So other OIC countries or beyond, I mean, it's in the Russian Federation, will be learning more and seeing how Islamic finance can support not only like the financial sector, but also the ecosystem of the economy, financing SMEs, Waqf, and many other areas that we can support on. So our collaboration, as I said, it goes beyond. We also participate, for example, we are a member of the Public Interest Oversight Board, which is an international body looking at auditing and assurance services on a global basis. So we, in any time, we have to be also always present to present the views or the impact of the new regulation that may have some impact on Islamic finance, Islamic banking. We'd also like standard setting bodies as very important, as I said, the Islamic finance ones, but also the conventional one, like the Basel Committee, Financial Stability Board, and so on, because this is very key and important, because regulation that is drawn and prepared now, later on will come to the will be implemented in the financial systems, and then will come to Islamic banks as well. So early on, we need to be prepared and to know what it is, and to highlight any problem that may arise from that, and any potential perhaps adaptations that are needed, and then talk to the regulators, talk to the central banks, talk to these international standard setters, so that they will be aware of this possible or potential unintended consequences or scenarios that will affect Islamic banks perhaps differently, which was not meant for that.
But definitely being 10 steps ahead has its own necessities. How does CIBAFI balance the preservation of Sharia principles with the need for innovation and modernization, as we've said, in the financial sector?
I think it's a very
very dedicated and thin line.
Yes, no, it's a very good question and interesting question. It's actually, when you are working on the edge of innovation, you come to certain areas which I would not say gray areas, but like areas that are
unexplored.
Unexplored. So like from Sharia perspectives, unexplored. Now what would you say? Would you say that we would not do it just because of that? Or, so there are different approaches. So Islamic banks in general, so sometimes we try to do so, because Sharia scholars are really, key for us, and without them, of course, no Islamic banking would be, because these are the minds that really study the issues and see how things can be done, how they can be implemented in this modern world of financial integration and the regulation, etc. So in general, what we see in general, the technology itself, it's most of the time is not, there are no issues on the Sharia permissibility of that technology. But sometimes, for the technology itself, but sometimes the question a little bit more tricky when it comes to how you are using that technology for some contracts, and how these contractual relationships, they can arise, they can start, they can be executed. Here we need to be careful, because sometimes that can be, I think this is not like it's something, so you come to a point where you have very advanced technology innovations, and we have some very specific rules on Islamic finance and in Sharia. So how to make sure that whatever is here will be like under this framework. Without, it's not intentional that there is somebody that wants to not use one. No, it's not that. But it's like, for example, we are talking about, for instance, when we talk about the blockchain, smart contracts, how they are triggered. So all these are very new, and extremely, of course, detailed, detailed and technical innovations. So when it comes to seeing, for example, what would be the Sharia view on this, this requires really a lot of studies, a lot of thinking, understanding. When, say, for example, we talk about these crypto assets. So it's similar. You talk about them. You are sometimes to be,
there are no presidents. The president is not there, so you have to make something that is similar.
Exactly. And then you need to have deep Sharia knowledge, but at the same time, deep understanding on how this is constructed. So that's why I think sometimes this is challenging, but But I think Islamic banks, they adapt to it because we have very, knowledgeable scholars, and for many tools and many items, perhaps they are not immediately needed. For example, we talk about crypto assets. Sometimes they are not on immediate need for the banks to start using them, even though they can be involved in some ways. But there are ways of and this is actually what keeps the industry like stretching. If you are going to develop, you need to stretch, to innovate, and to advance.
Being 10 steps ahead, as we said.
Yes, exactly.
When it comes to CIBAFI preparing its members to navigate potential disruptions within the financial sector, such as the rise of digital currencies, as these have mentioned, fintech innovations and everything, CIBAFI does a very deep preparation in order to make that possible. Tell us about that procedure. How does that happen?
Yeah, I think it's a really, it's really a long-term work that we have. For example, talking about crypto assets and money, how it is, and so on. The first time really we started, we had a roundtable, we had a conference. It was in 2017 about this, and it was the future of money. Yeah. So we try, we have our industry research and research department. So we see we need to be in advance of what is happening, not what is happening now, but looking at potential things that will happen in the future and or are happening now, but very remotely, but will have potentially an impact on the industry, perhaps in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and so on. Similar for sustainability. From 2015, we started talking about it and looking at ESG framework. So when we start at this early stage, then it is very good. It's very important. Yeah. In most of these cases, for example, when we started talking about fintech, at the time, 2017, 16, many banks, they were saying that, why is this?
That's not possible. It's not going to happen.
They would say this is not related to us. They say we are banks. We are not like technology and so on.
Now it's the basis of it.
Exactly, because now you start seeing. And we had same thing on sustainability. When we started talking about sustainability, even though Islamic banks in reality are more prepared to this because of their ethical behavior and so on. But when we start talking about sustainable development goals of the United Nations, and so on. Many banks at the time, they started saying, they say, well, isn't this the role of governments? It is true, it is the role of governments, but it is also the role of the private sector, because without whom, nothing can mean the economy. Developing the economy, poverty, alleviation and eradication cannot happen with government's only work. So there are many other things that, and the economy, to develop the economy needs fuel. Need financing. Who would finance the economy if not the banks? And then Islamic banks, due to these activities, they are actually intertwined and will be, really within the objectives of the ethical and maqasid Shariah, or Shariah objectives, within the sustainability framework. So this is where Islamic banks, they can showcase what they're doing. And that's what we have been, when we start raising awareness on this, then, early, there is sometimes we start with some kind of skepticism, then we see some interest, then we see some deep involvement.
And then innovation.
Exactly. For example, when we started on this fintech and innovations and technology, because we established an innovation and technology working group. So we had the IT departments of the members talking and discussing, exchanging. So they start seeing, this one doing something here, and that one is doing something here. So there's something happening. And we have sustainability working group, looking at sustainability framework, etc. So when the pandemic, for example, came in, and many at the time they were having a number of projects on innovations and digital transformation for 5 years, 6 years, or 7 years. But then because all of a sudden everything was closed, they had to at least bring some projects forward and implement them within 2-3 months. So that really had accelerated and had put really a big push for digital transformation, which is still ongoing now. So it's like we are doing it in kind of phases.
Yeah.
So going through like the simple basic matters related to payment systems and mobile and so on. But that digital transformation is not only that.
Yeah.
That's really the basics. That's become now everyone. If you don't have that one, it's like you are not. Yeah. So, but then digital transformation is much more. So now you have a lot of other things we need to think, as we see on AI, artificial intelligence, data analytics. How are you using data? How can you use AI for data analytics? How can you use AI not only for like the so-called, or what we see most commonly, the chatbots for this, which are sometimes annoying more than helping, but really on the operations. For example, how can you streamline your processes? How can you be more efficient for the services that you're providing to the customer, which is the key. We should not forget this. I mean, the key is to see what is the customer experience? How are you enhancing it? How are you not stopping and being on a plateau type of things? So we need always to continue. It's challenging ourselves, our operations, and seeing how we can grow and develop with using these new technologies, and not only like because it's a continuous process. When we talk to some of the banks, many times, okay, you introduce, and this is like technology risk, you introduce some new technologies in your operations or in your customer-facing interactions and so on. So now it is top-notch at this now. But maybe in 1 year, in 2 years, it's become obsolete. Maybe it's very fast. So it can be really fast. Maybe 1 year or 2 years may become obsolete. So we need to have this continuous awareness and seeing what's happening out there, not only on the country, not on the region, but on the global basis, seeing what are the innovations that are happening, and see how, because now you are, if you just stay, you will have other other newcomers. You will have now, you know, with the globalization and so on, like things, there are almost no borders on financial transactions. You can open an account in in Europe now, while you are here in Bahrain, you can open in any country in GCC almost with no limitations and no borders. So the competition is no more like it used to be before. You have the bank which is outdoor, and then you are, now it's, I think it's global. It's also on business models. So what are you offering? For example, now we have many, the competition is very fierce on on money transfer, because that's kind of easy way to do it. We have all telecom companies that are involved in it. So that's why there are these innovations, they bring really opportunities, and we are positive on that. And they can, because the banks, they have the legacy. They have something which they bring with them. They have the customer base. They have the information. But that information and this data needs to be used the right way to leverage and to continue innovating and continue progressing.
Absolutely. When we, as you've said, the legacy that the banking institutions bring with them is sometimes a key factor in Islamic banking adaptation to the clients and everything, especially that now it's not about the institution having only Islamic banking backgrounds, but now just a department within the institution can have that, and the trust of the bank itself and so on goes a far way. You talked about AI, data analytics, and we talked about it from the beginning of the show, the aspects that affect innovation, the aspects that make us have to be agile and adapt very fast. AI and data analytics are systems that are very easily guided through prompting, specifically prompting in questioning, prompting in seeking information, prompting in finding the best fit for any given time and moment. The Global Bankers Survey report explores AI and data analytics. From your perspective, how prepared are Islamic banks to leverage these technologies responsibly and effectively, especially that, as we've said, there are regulations, there are rules that are set within Islamic banking, but who uses them, who questions them, who wants access to them is the question. Are there biases? How is AI navigated safely within the context of Islamic banking?
Yeah, I think AI in general, I mean, the question of AI on some of the fundamental issues related to it in terms of data protection, in terms of bias and so on. These are like universal problems, and a number of countries I think are looking at it. Even though, I mean, in Europe, for instance, EU and so on, they are very active on this. The last few years in the US, they were also active, but it seems that the recent few months, or at least with this administration, the developments are not really keen on regulation of these things, and perhaps more deregulation kind of trend is happening, which is also affecting maybe some other places, EU and even Asia, Japan, and some other countries. So, but I think regardless, these are some of the issues that we think are very critical, and we need to take care of them, but really on a global basis. It's not really on a like regional or country basis. Coming to the implementation of some of these tools, well, I think it's a journey, because when we're talking about AI, for example, is not only these large language models, ChatGPT, Claude, and others. It's not only that. So we have many other things that can be used and can be leveraged. If we talk maybe like 5 years or 6 years ago about it, many would not know. And it's become really like on the news with ChatGPT, with this prompting, and then seeing it as more noticeable. But this exists in like maybe for a long time. I mean, on this like facial recognition, and many other things like this, or recognizing the like passport copies, etc., and ID identification, and so on. So, talking in particular about this point, I mean, why we put it, because in our Global Islamic Banking Survey, which is the 10th edition for 10 years now that we are doing it, why we introduced it, because we always want to have the pulse of the industry. Where is the industry in some areas, on the concerns, on the issues, on the risk management, how is their thinking evolving over time. Then we have one section which every year is a different one. That's usually like a forward-looking section, seeing what is really perhaps something, not now, but maybe how it is. So the members, they follow carefully, because they see we put it there, meaning something is in there. This is on the trend area. For example, we had on women empowerment, on youth and talents, and on fintech, for example.
A while back before. It was security also.
Yes, exactly. So we had many on this. So we put now AI and data analytics, because we think, and this is really our firm belief, that the banks have a tremendous amount of data that they can use, but probably they are not using effectively and sufficiently. And this is what we did. We asked, for example, what are they using data analytics? And many actually there are different tools to use it, from the simple Excel to SPSS to some other conventional tools. And then are they using AI? And then we ask also what kind of AI are you using? So now which is becoming more common is these chatbots. You ask questions and so on, or maybe some internal things related to your documentation to know where is this on the processes and so on. But the other section, are you leveraging AI use, not only this large language model, but many other tools on AI, for your data analytics, to analyze your data, to have some business insights, to get perhaps new products, develop new products, to get new customers. So this is where perhaps there is still limited use, and we think there is an opportunity. Because again, when we talk, for example, I mean, everyone knows now the capital of many of the companies, what is it? It's the data.
Yeah.
So of course you have your human capital, you have your capital, etc. But data is becoming key for this world now with all this AI, and you see data centers that's being built
Yes.
a little bit everywhere and so on, because data is becoming a key commodity and a system that will allow and will enable many other things.
It's a currency by itself.
Exactly. So like, for example, when we talk about this GAFAM and the big tech, what is their strength? Where does it come from?
Data.
If data that they have. So Islamic banks or banks in general, they have the data, and they have perhaps more useful data because on the purchase habits, on consumption, etc. But I can tell you, not many are using it effectively and rightly to develop the right products and to target the client, to expand the base and to support the customers. For example, now, if you have the right tools, you can streamline the credit evaluation process. You can use AI with your data that you have to streamline the process for evaluation of credit to the SMEs.
Okay. Yeah.
But so this is something which can be done.
Yeah.
So it will become.
It
shorten and it will expand your portfolio because you give opportunities to others. But because without this data, maybe you will not be able, or you would not grant that SME a loan or its financing. Without that. But if you have that data, you have it. If you have right tools to analyze it and to give you some business insights, it will bring inclusion, financial inclusion to these SMEs into the system. It will expand the operations of the bank. It will be good for everybody. So these are areas we need perhaps to work more, raise awareness, showing some tools, really taking the hands of the banks and helping them on this journey.
Absolutely. It opens the doors also for innovative businesses within the same context of, for instance, providing education, awareness, providing services in launching SMEs and different things. CIBAFI actually introduced many mechanisms, many measures, and many different contexts, but specifically it introduced a greenhouse gas impact measurement mechanism as one of the tools that will help Islamic banks actively. Tell us a little bit about that. How will this tool help Islamic banks to be actively contributing to climate change mitigation while remaining Sharia compliant, knowing that that by itself is a very big factor in the balance of the financial sector?
No, exactly. I think this has been a very an important project for the last few years. I mean, as I said, we have been working from before on this sustainability, and our sustainability working group. One of the first projects was to have this, and we had an MOU with a global organization working on this, like the PCAF. It's a Partnership for Carbon Accounting Financials, which they do the measurement of the greenhouse gas or carbon footprint emissions of the portfolios, not only the operations, not only the electricity, air condition, and so on of the institution, but really on your portfolio, which is the more important. So that's what we worked for almost 2 years to develop the equivalents for the Islamic banks, so that they will be able to know exactly what are their financed emissions. So they grant loans and financing. What is the carbon footprint of that activity itself, of financing this? And this is key because the last few years there has been the establishment of the central banks network for greening the financial system in Paris, which englobes many over 130, 140 central banks globally. So they are working because we know the issues related to climate change are real and are happening, and we see it now. I mean, extreme weather events happening a little bit all over. So this is something real which is happening, and then regulators now they are working with international standard setters the Basel Committee of Banking Supervision has issued guidelines for how to manage climate change risk within the transition. Because sometimes, and this again, when we started talking about this many years ago, like 2018, 19, and so on, there was like a misunderstanding, and then skepticism, and then some interest.
Realization.
But now, yes, because many of the banks, they were saying, yeah, we talked to them at the time, and they say, yeah, we are reducing our electricity bill. We are not contributing to climate change because the operations of an office, it's not there.
Within the context of
we say yes, but what about your financing?
Yeah.
Are you financing like operations of companies that have high? So you are not directly, but indirectly you are permitting
have a hand
this.
in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and this is, they said, yeah, maybe. So that then they started thinking like this and knowing. But then more than that, this has risks also. It's not only with this contribution, but say you have a portfolio which is exposed to high carbon footprint companies, companies that have high carbon footprint. You don't know what will happen. If you have, for example, engagement with them or commitment for 10 years, you don't know what will happen for these companies in 3 years, 5 years' time.
Yeah, especially with the changes of regulations that are coming.
Exactly. So there is a transition which is happening. So how are you doing with this? What will happen if in 5 years' time this company will not be able to continue?
What's your contingency plan?
Yeah. So you are engaged with them, you are committed, you have provided them with financing. So then they started really understanding and saying, okay, so what should we do? We said, well, at least you need to know what is your exposure. But how to know your exposure? Then you need to know how to measure your footprint, the footprint of
your liability.
Yeah, exactly. And this is how actually this tool, so it provides this mean to be able to know now. And we had it was just issued last year, and we had a few workshops. We had just one here in Bahrain the last 2 weeks with the Central Bank of Bahrain. To show to the banks, okay, taking your assets, this is what is your carbon footprint, because this will have implications, as we said, on the transition, but will also have implications from regulatory perspective, as the regulators and the standard setters, the Basel Committee, looking at how to manage this. So in the future, it's almost certain this will come, that they will be accounting for risk weights higher when you have high exposure to climate change. And that will really penalize you from your capital requirements. So that's why bringing this to the table now, knowing what is your footprint right now, will allow you to have a benchmark and to see it, maybe to have to manage it over time. So we don't want to be like surprised with global regulation that will be implemented on us, and then we'll limit our operations, or we'll have even more consequences. So this is like a forward-looking approach to seeing this, and now we are actually going further than that. In our strategic plan, and then with the feedback that we have now from the members on what we should be doing next. Because this is, as I said, our strategic plan now is to 2025. These areas were like preparation areas for the carbon footprints, for digital transformations, how to have them integrated, to facilitate how to integrate sustainability and innovation. We had these guides that were issued, and we are working on the banks with them. But then again, we have some questions and requests. They are asking us to do further, to do more than that, not only providing a guide, but also
to actually take over implementing
guidelines. Guiding how to do it. Really working with them closely on how to do it. Maybe having a platform that could help in the calculation or measuring the carbon footprint. So this is really our work that will be coming for the next few months and the next year, is to support the banks in this journey. in digital transformation, showing what else they can do, how they can do, and then plan for something for them, have like a roadmap of the implementation, because as we said, digital transformation is not one. It's something you have many other things. You cannot, of course, do everything at the same time, but you need at least to have a roadmap to know where you want to go, where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years from now, and then start the implementation. Same thing for the other things on sustainability, climate change, and carbon footprint. You need to start that journey. So the thinking on sustainability is easier for Islamic banks because of their ethical behavior and the transactions. So it fits the purpose. But for the other areas, we need just to formalize it better, to be better prepared to tackling these upcoming challenges.
Especially that potentially these are scale changers, they are balance changers in the future. CIBAFI doesn't only stop at developing programs that impact the industry, but it also sets strategic plans with priority initiatives, as you have mentioned. What can you tell us about CIBAFI's strategic plan when it comes to setting these priorities for its members and stakeholders that is expected within the next upcoming phase?
Yeah, exactly. So this is actually as we said right now, and we have been in consultations with members for the last few months. We had the number meeting. We have another meeting maybe next June. Mm-hmm. So we are preparing for the next one, 2025, 2027, or 2028. So our purpose is seeing again how we can provide value to the members, but really tangible value. How? By not only providing guidelines, but really providing them with some tools that can help them in the implementation, in their challenges, be it on innovation, or be it on obviously all this like sustainability integration. So we will be having more platform type of tools that banks can connect with, have perhaps connected with their systems, and then allow them perhaps to have a better grasp and details of what they should be doing in terms of innovation and sustainability. We are working on this same thing on the platform, online training platform that will facilitate access to this. One of the challenges of the Islamic banks is on professional development and capacity building, so which will ease that process. So in a way, the next strategic plan, the fourth that we have, will go more deeper into the value proposition that CIBAFI has for the members, how we can provide them with value, and how we can support a little bit in more details on each one at its own development stage, with the right tools to help on this transformation journey. The other area which we need to work on very closely is looking at the regulatory framework, regulations, and how standards are implemented. In different countries. We see different levels of development of this area, and we think there is a need for better collaborations, better cooperations among the members and with regulators and standard setters and central banks, those that implement. Because in many jurisdictions, as we said again, maybe some they implement 50% of what is needed, some 20%, some even no implementation at all. And this really puts a problem for Islamic banks. So we will need to work a little bit more closely, not only on raising awareness, but really seeing how we can leverage from those countries that have this advanced expertise to those that need more support.
So for instance, by putting a basic standard when it comes to certain regulations or procedures and everything that has to be there in order to implement these kind of services. Now, You actually talked about what my next question would have been, the challenges facing the Islamic financial institutions. But to focus on that, I mean, when we talk on the show, we literally have 45 minutes to tackle this huge subject, and no way that's going to happen. So everything that you're talking about might sound a little bit simple and logical, but there's so much work behind it. And one of the main limitations and also innovative pushers is governance. Governance, governance, governance. The policy setters, the rule setters, and where we have to abide. How, from your point of view, what are the primary governance and compliance challenges that are going to face or are being faced by Islamic financial institutions today?
Yeah, well, I think you rightly, perhaps you keep this question at this time, because this is important, it's key. I think we think that governance is the foundation, really, is foundation for all this, for how the Islamic banks, they operate. Even if when we talk about innovation and sustainability, and governance is at the center of it. Yeah. Without proper governance, and this we have, I mean, for example, in our digital transformation guide that we have just issued right now, the first area we talk about is governance. Because without governance, without a tone from the top, you cannot go down the road and implementing and etc. So governance is very, very important. And when we see the last few years, we had many actually work on this in practice on seeing like on some professional development initiatives, some training, some workshops, working with some central banks. We have these three pillars of governance, risk and compliance. They go together. And we have, even though in times where we maybe like the perception of risk may be low, but that's where perhaps we need to be a little bit more careful. So governance is very important. We have in the last, maybe into 2017, we did a deep research with the World Bank, a report with the World Bank on governance. And we are now, by this time, we are working on the second version of this. What we did before is seeing, like with an index, with a benchmark, looking at how Islamic banks are doing in terms of governance, looking at the OECD principles, the Basel Committee principles, etc. And now we are revisiting that, and seeing how was the progress for the last 7 to 8 years. Because nothing is perfect. We cannot attain the 100% benchmark, but we should aim for it. So new developments happen, for example, on sustainability and climate change, how these are embedded into the governance framework. So this is work that still needs to be done and to be developed. Again, the journey is not like, it's not okay, like we do and then we stop and we do it. No, it's like, even though what we see, what we like to do is to see in where we are, what level did we reach? And I personally, I am an optimistic by nature. I like to see the glass half full. Yes. Even if it is less full, I see it.
There's a way to fill it.
There's a way to fill it, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for this. So we see it as a point where we can advance. So this is an opportunity to develop, to do more. And this is what we are doing, and we think that's, I mean, in some ways, the way again is the journey is long. There are many challenges, but I truly believe that within these challenges, there are opportunities. And I think one area, perhaps, maybe if we can say, going beyond operations, the regulation, etc. One area which we need to work more on as Islamic banks, and this is not only for us or like infrastructure institutions, but really each one of us, is to demonstrate the ethical part and the value proposition of our institutions to the public. Yes. So for example, us as an organization, our focus is more on the institutions, on global, on the regulators, etc.
Not on the consumer.
Who is looking at the consumers? Yeah. I think this is perhaps something we need to work on, and banks need also to help us on this, because without this showing value to the consumer and how we can bring the consumer at the center in terms not only of Sharia compliance, which is of course must have, but you have also the service, you have also the financial inclusion and being at the center of what we do, which is also part of the ethical ethical features of Islamic finance.
Absolutely. It's a very important factor, especially that when it comes to Islamic financing, Islamic banking and everything, the consumers themselves have their different targets, they have their different aspirations. So having that conversation towards what they want is erasing the stigma that comes with Islamic financing, whether it is low rates, whether it is time consuming and all that kind of stuff. That is really erasing the stigma that comes with it. Before we end today's show, what from your point of view are emerging trends that you foresee that will be shaping the future of Islamic finance in the next decade, and what are CIBAFI's future plans and upcoming projects that will fit with these future innovations and trends to come?
Yeah, I think if we have a crystal ball.
Yes.
But we can foresee. I mean, the trends that we are looking at right now, we see, even though maybe, I mean, recent months or something may not be indicative, but globally and generally, the trend, of course, is that digitalization is going more and more until some point where, I mean, what would be the new bank of tomorrow? What we see already in countries like, I mean, in Europe and others, in many countries in Europe, you cannot just go to the bank and then and enter and see meet with a teller. You cannot. So you need, I mean, most of the time you have these ATM machines where you can do everything. And in case you need to really meet somebody to talk to, you need to take appointment and come. Maybe these have half a days a week or something like this.
It's a time-consuming process.
Yeah. So things are changing. So digitalization is going beyond what we just see right now here. So what we will be seeing in 5-10 years is like the really complete transformation of how we bank. Yeah. So it will become more like as a neobanks or quasi-neobanks. So meaning really meeting with the banks face to face in rare occasions where you must have or you need to
have the human factor.
Yes, but because of something. So for this we need to be prepared also. So banks, they need, so this is a trend. If you don't do it, then you have some other newcomers that will be. You have some neobanks that come and then will challenge you. So we need to be prepared for this and to adapt to it and to offer, because this is also the young generations. Yes. They aim more for this. They don't want to go to the banks and be waiting for, I mean, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So now is, as we said, this TikTok era. Yeah. Everything has to be fast.
Exactly. And they set the bar high for security in a fast way.
Exactly, and very high. So if they need to connect to the app and see something, if it is
and feel safe doing it.
Yeah, and if it is very effective, okay, they will do it. If it is not, then they will change. They will do another way. So I think this is something very important. The second point is on the ethics. On the ethics, as I just said, is something is our responsibility. I mean, we know that when you explain to, for example, someone who is knowledgeable, economists and practitioners, even on the conventional system, you explain to them the features of Islamic banking and finance. They are convinced. You can, because you bring the economic theory, etc. You show that's what is how Islamic banks they operate. The fact that there is no creation of new money without real activity and ethical behavior and so on.
They're not always the main user, consumer.
Exactly. So you have the consumer, like the layman people, they just see ATM. So what is the difference?
Yeah.
So and this is where we need to do a little bit more to show, to communicate, and to show that it is banking, but it is ethical banking. So and how it is done and what is done with your deposits. Because of that only, not only because you don't receive interest, but you also what is being done with your deposits. Exactly. So all these areas, I think on the ethics side, we need to work a little bit more to explain, just to explain. And really, this is a very, very hard work because because we need to explain to people who are not familiar with, I mean, don't be technical on this. We need to be with like really simple layman language on how is this different from the conventional. What is your value addition? What can you do? What you do differently? What can you do? How do you support really the economy? What are the activities you are working on? This will be not only, I mean, we foresee the growth of Islamic finance has been steady for the last 40 years maybe, and has accelerated again maybe the last 15 years, passing from 1 trillion in 2010 to almost more than 4 trillion now, like 40 times. 4 times more. The next 4 or 5 years, probably it will be doubling this size because we are reaching a critical mass right now, so which will be really doubling. But beyond this is really the impact that we are interested on. What you do for SMEs and for the consumers, the individuals, that's very, very key and very important. And we need to show it really and to explain how is this done and how it supports the economy and how the Islamic banks, beyond all this, beyond social responsibility, how are they doing within the Sharia objectives framework, contributing to sustainability and integrating innovation to facilitate this process.
Yes, definitely. That symbiotic relationship between consumer and Sharia banking institutions is very important to highlight because at the end of the day, stakeholders, they're both stakeholders in each other's interest when you look at it from that way. Thank you very much, Doctor, for being with us today and for answering our questions. CIBAFI has a lot of future plans and projects that are upcoming and that we hopefully will be able to highlight and keep everybody updated on. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
And we'd also like to thank you, dear viewers, for watching us, and we will see you next week in another episode of Panoramic Edition.